This On the Spot series is brought to you by System1. What if you could predict whether an ad or product or an idea was going to connect with consumers and be successful even before it launched? That's where System1 comes in. They're the creative effectiveness platform that uses emotional measurement and norms to help brands predict what will truly drive growth and how to further improve it. From new product concepts and packaging to Super Bowl spots and social campaigns, System One enables you to create with confidence across all of your creative. To learn more, check them out at system1group.com. That's system1group.com. And by Tracksuit. Tracksuit is the affordable, always on brand tracking tool that helps marketers and agencies answer the question, is what we're doing working? Companies pay $100,000, which I still can't believe, or even more, for brand tracking, which is out of the question for most modern brands. Their in house research experts do the heavy lifting using best in class practices to craft your survey and get you results fast. Tracksuit gives you brand tracking you can afford. Check them out at gotracksuit.com. That's gotracksuit.com. Welcome back to this month's episode of On the Spot, where planners talk about brands they love but never worked on. I'm really excited to share that we are actually taking this format live to GSD&M in Austin, Texas on September 10th. So it's going to be on the spot live in front of the audience there at the agency. And if you're in the Austin area or the Dallas area, we would love to have you come along and be a part of that. You can get tickets on our website at onstrategyshowcase.com. If you go to the live tour tab on off of the homepage, you can get tickets there. It's going to be a ton of fun. What is in essence going to happen in front of the live audience, and there's a ton of audience participation, is three strategists are going to come in, and they're going to each pitch a campaign to us that they love. They're going to answer our questions, and we'll probably have a bunch of beer influenced questions, of course, and we'll discuss it back and forth, and then we will vote as an entire audience on which one is the best campaign, and we will award the a phenomenal on the spot trophy, which is being created now by master craftsmen somewhere in the United States, and it will turn up on the night and be handed to the winner. So the three strategists that are going to be presenting a separate campaign, and it's going to be Kate Gunning, head of strategy at GSD&M. Christina Panzolini is group strategy director at Callan. Greg Hunter is an executive creative director at Preacher, and he is an honorary strategist on the night because he's apparently a very strategic creative. So we're very excited about that. And then joining me at the judging table, we're calling it the judging table, but it's really not. That is Maria D'Amato. She's executive creative director at GSD&M, alongside Vanessa Chin of Tracksuit. I beg your pardon, Vanessa Chin of System One, and Julia Morgan of Tracksuit. And now, obviously they're there to give us, they're sort of serving as the conscience of that show. They're going to tell us how the ads tested, how the brands are tracking. And it's a ton of fun. And I've been really, really wanting to do this for a long time. So if you're there, do come along and hang with us. It'll be great. As I say, tickets on our website. Um, as an introduction to this week's episode of On the Spot, I wanted to share something that I didn't realize at the time, and I wanted to sort of explain it before we start the episode. So, Specsavers, for those of you in the UK, you all know it very well. Maybe not so much here in the US, but Specsavers is a campaign that's been going on called "I should have gone to Spec." You should have gone to Specsavers, and it's been around for 20 plus years. It's done in house. There's a great story behind this brand, but the work is phenomenal, and they've been really great. What they're doing is they're selling eyeglasses, so their whole campaign has been built around the idea that developing concepts around mistakes you make if you can't see properly. So it's a really fertile creative territory. One example is a wife thinks her husband is cheating on her because she sees a woman in the car with him. It turns out that it was actually their dog. So there's bunches of these sort of little creative flips that they've done for years around eyeglasses. They more recently started on hearing aids, and I'm not sure that recently is in the last 12 months. I look at some of this work, and I think it's a couple of years old. But the spot that we're gonna be talking about today was around Valentine's Day, and so that's why this campaign was picked by Alix Toothman, which I'll talk about in a second. But what we didn't, or I didn't know, when we were recording this episode, is that they have taken that same formula that they did for eyeglasses, which is mistakes that you make if you can't see properly, and they flipped that over to hearing aids, which are mistakes you can make if you can't hear properly. So they've done a bunch of that work, and I'll play an example of it here.
No, Brian. I said I wanted a divorce.
Specsavers Audiology sponsors Emmerdale.
Surprise!
Supplies. I said send supplies.
Say again?
So in essence, I didn't realize this when we were recording this episode. So I was playing spots in this episode that have really don't have a lot of humor to them, as you'll hear. And I was sort of reflecting on the fact of why didn't they have humor? Well, the fact is they have a bunch of spots that have humor, as you've just heard. So I was wrong. And as we always say on this show, when we're wrong, we'll admit it. And we don't always claim to be right. So that's cool. So let's get underway with the on the spot team this month. It's Anibal Casso as Chief Strategy Officer at Ogilvy North America. He picked Columbia Sportswear, which is done out of London, Adam and Eve in London. Wonderful work. And Alix Toothman is Executive Strategy Director at Wieden and Kennedy in New York City. And she picked the Specsavers campaign and a specific execution that you'll hear about in a second. We're also joined by Beth Merchant from System1 and Rags Prataf of Tracksuit to give us color commentary on how ads tested and how brands are tracking. So this is on the spot. Enjoy. I hope everybody has their cocktail because we've actually been talking about making cocktails mandatory. I know, I know, I know. Because it's supposed to be we're trying to replicate what it's like to be in a bar talking strategy with colleagues. So why not have a cocktail, of course? Now, it is 9 a.m. in the morning on a Monday morning. But I think what I'm gonna do in the future is I'm gonna insist that everybody brings a cocktail or a mocktail, or at least their favorite drink.
Sounds good.
And for those who know me, this is actually an old fashioned. This is a real drink. So, cheers. Very tasty. God damn, I'm drinking at 9 a.m. on a Monday morning. This is not a good sign.
That's morbid.
Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to do today. We're going to be talking about two brands. Anibal is going to be talking about Columbia Sportswear. Alex has come on to talk about the wonderful work for Specsavers. These are campaigns that these guys have chosen. As you may know from the past, I used to choose the campaign. And then last month, when we had Chris Gallery on and we had Nick Hurst on, we flipped it and we said, "Okay, guys, you come to the table with a campaign you like." And I was really excited about it because there was more of a willingness to defend your choice, and there was a lot more rich sort of feedback. And I was like, "Okay, that's the formula." So you guys can't screw it up today. Since you brought your campaigns, you've got to be equally energetic as those guys were. But what this is all about is really just sort of building on what we like about the work. It's not about tearing it down. And that's an important thing to keep in mind. And also, as we always say, we're not saying that we're right. These are our opinions of the work, and that's why we have Beth here from System1 and Rags here from Tracksuit because they'll keep us sort of sobered up. No, no, no pun intended. With what their data shows is the reality of each of these brands. So, without any other preamble, why don't we dive into this? Alex, of course, Alex works and runs the Ford business at Wieden and Kennedy. So it's a nice flip that you didn't pick an automotive brand. So we appreciate that.
I get enough
But
of
tell
that.
us about what you picked and
So
why.
I picked Specsavers out of the UK, and I thought, in particular, their work this year called the Relationship Aid was really interesting and kind of represents some of what I love most about strategy. I think it unpacks a pretty unglamorous category on the surface. Hearing aids are, most planners probably aren't jumping for joy if that's their first assignment. But I think like many of those types of categories, once you kind of scratch the surface, there's a ton of really rich emotional intensity. And I think that they got to something really interesting there by finding a truth. It's unexpected, but a real truth that uh, hearing loss can really impact the relationships that you have with others, and in particular, your romantic partner. So I think getting to that human insight was really interesting. And then I think it was just a lot of genius kind of strategic and creative execution to say, okay, how can we do this in a way that truly catches fire and really creates conversation, kind of teasing it. I think their tease film, treating it like a really premium sex toy to get people talking. And then the big reveal, I think we're all genius and just kind of made for the modern kind of conversation, both social and daytime television and all of that. So really brilliant on that particular instance, but I think also building on like 20 years of really smart work, bringing humor and kind of insight into both hearing and kind of sight.
Well, can you describe the spot? And then we're gonna drop it in edit, but describe what it is so people know.
So they basically took their hearing aid. I don't think it was a specific hearing aid, but it was really the intent was to get people to go get their ears checked and go into Specsavers to see if they had hearing loss. But they initially treated it with kind of these super macro close-ups and stuff that it looks like maybe it's not a hearing aid, maybe it's something else.
Introducing the most exciting innovation in couples connection and intimacy. Small, but oh so powerful. The moment you turn it on, you'll feel closer than ever. AI-powered technology enhances your senses. Discreet and designed to be used anywhere. On date night, in a crowded bar, or even in a work meeting. Cheeky. Hands-free. It lasts all day, no matter where you find yourself. The device your relationship has been missing is a hearing aid. Bring the spark back. Book a free hearing check for you and your partner at Specsavers.
Beth, what did you see the work and what did you think of it?
Yeah, I've seen this work, and I, as a Brit, have a huge fondness for Specsavers. Of course, I actually was looking into, they have a very long-running brand platform over here. Should have gone to Specsavers. It's genuinely, which I think is the ultimate aim of like any brand ever, is genuinely part of like the vocabulary and the lexicon here of like if someone makes a silly mistake, it's like, oh, they should have gone to Specsavers. So fantastic brand, and it's no like surprise to me that they're creating this kind of fantastic work.
For me though, what was interesting, I found it to be a disconnect for Specsavers. It felt like a completely different direction for the brand to be going in based upon the snappy humor that it has typically had, which I kind of worry about where the brand has chosen to go after 22 years of being like super smart in its humor. This felt like it's a wonderful execution, but is it a Specsavers execution? I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily describe their historic work as like super clever. It's always been a bit of I mean, there's silliness involved of
Yeah.
like, here's what, like those Emerald Dale bumpers and stuff, or the classic work of, what is it, the very first one with the sheep herder accidentally, shearing his dog. So there's always been a bit of a silliness to it. I personally think that they've done a nice job of evolving that, though, in a modern kind of media landscape where maybe people aren't watching a 30-second ad as much, and instead it's that reveal of like what's, again, the kind of misdirection or reveal is now happening in a maybe a slightly different shape.
Yeah, it's always been misdirection, you're
Yeah.
right.
I think if I can build, one of the things that fascinates me about this one is, to your point, Beth. I mean, this is Specsavers has one of the longest, running platforms that I can remember, and it has built an equity around it. Um, but the questions that came to my head as I love the work. But the questions that came to my head were like, the first one, is this a magic trick? Because so when that happens, you just pull the rug once, but then you have to figure out what is like chapter two to it. Like, how do you continue to be like to build on it? But to me, that this second part was the one that I'm so curious to ask, guessing the number of how it did on System One. It was like, who's the hero? Because there's a very fine line between the person with the hearing loss becoming a punchline versus becoming the protagonist. And I had a lot of fun watching it, but at the end, I was wondering, then, who's going to be the hero? It's just the actual person, the target, like a punchline on the story.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. I do think in this one, because they did do another thing with Rick. What was his name? The Rick rolled for the misheard version, which I think almost maybe plays into that a little bit more of like, oh, you're mishearing it. It's kind of jokes on you. This one actually, I think, is a little bit smarter on that dimension because it's a relationship kind of aid. And so and I think their goal was to actually get couples to go into Specsavers together. So I do think there's almost like most of the time it is positioned as like you're the one at fault, you're the one that didn't see something or didn't hear it correctly. In
Mhm.
this instance, why I think I liked this even more was that it's about, no, this isn't just affecting you, this is affecting all of the people around you who you're not connecting with because you can't hear what they're saying anymore. And so kind of treating that as almost a shared medical challenge or a shared issue that you guys can both go in and help address is kind of an interesting twist.
Rags, what'd you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. It was a hot take. I think a real pivot for Specsavers, right? And I think looking at the tracksuit data from our perspective is Specsavers are known in the eyewear space predominantly. It's where they've built, this brand with such a strong brand equity. I think in a way it's a risk. It's something that's new. It's obviously going into this, a different category as a whole. But I think brands with such high equity are allowed to take kind of big swings to try and encourage and engage with different audiences at the same time. We look at it and say Specsavers have 90% awareness. 9 in every 10 eyewear buyers in the UK know the brand, and 50% actually convert and say it's their preferred brand in that space in itself. So I feel it's low risk, while there is probably a lot of, slightly different opinions versus prior work as well.
It's a good point too, though, that this was also them expanding into another category
Yeah.
that people aren't as associate them with as much. And so almost a higher bar to maybe cut through existing kind of expectations.
I think the consistency of that, that having run that brand platform for 20 plus years, it kind of buys them that ability to invert the format, I think. And they've done it previously with work like this whole campaign that was like, I don't go to Specsavers, they come to me, to promote
the
like
in-home
home visits.
in-home
And that was
examination.
super successful, but it only because they've built this, as Rag said, huge levels of brand awareness and loads of equity over a long period of time through this really creative consistency that they lean into so well. I do think it allows them a little bit of leeway to maybe play with some fun executions like this that are quite different to their usual format.
Because when I looked at the original, the whole body of Should Have Gone to Specsavers work, simple executions, not just the bumpers like from Emmerdale, but there's 30s and whatever, but it was super entertaining, super human, really great. Been around for, a long, long time. But then when I saw the new work about the in-home examinations and the expansion into the other areas, I felt the humor just went from 10 to like 4.
Hmm.
It didn't feel like they transitioned, and I wonder if that's gonna have an impact, and I don't know why they would do that, but it seems like it's lost that edge, and I look at brands like Progressive, when they expanded from auto insurance into home insurance, into motorcycle insurance, they took those same characters, they took that same tone and humor, And I think they probably were very deliberate, obviously, to maintain that in new categories. I wonder if this is a little bit too much of a risk executionally. I'm not sure they've pulled it off at Specsavers.
Oh, I could never go to Specsavers.
No, I don't go to Specsavers.
Not anymore.
The thing is,
Oh, dear.
I don't go to Specsavers actually.
Oh, behave.
Should have gone to Specsavers. No. They come to me. Oh, hi there, come on in.
We're there for people who can't go to Specsavers too. We thought you should know. To see if you're eligible, search Specsavers Home Visits.
The one thing that stands out to me is you've got, let's take the eyewear category, is probably a lot more broad. Like people from 20 years on upwards would be buying glasses, prescription eyewear. Audiology to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, would be a lot smaller as a category as a whole. So that target audience is also probably a lot older. So the question begs then is the narrative that they're trying to tell really focusing on hitting the right audience as well. And to your point, Fergus, is that a risk that is potentially missed as well?
I think to Meg's point, though, like this is a very sensitive category and I briefly worked in hearing aids actually when I worked on Bose years ago. They were starting to look at getting into some kind of over-the-counter hearing aids. And any of these categories that are associated with aging, whether it's dentures or audiology and hearing aids, you're having to overcome quite a lot of like a psychological barrier from that customer to even acknowledge that they need these things. Even if everyone around them knows that they need them, it can be quite a challenge because of the stigma and the association with aging, in the sense of, I'm getting older and I don't really want to acknowledge that. So I think that's, again, maybe to me, to your point, Regs, I think it's really smart that maybe the normal Specsavers work is talking to such a broad audience. There's not really a stigma around wearing glasses. But in this instance, you're having to really get people over a hurdle to acknowledge this problem. And again, why I like the relationship element of it is making it feel like it's less about just them, but it's also about how they are part of a wider dynamic in their relationship.
And actually, Alex, that's a really good point that even answers some of the challenges that I was having with the platform or the campaign, which is that refrain that you mentioned, or like gets a much broader audience and much more reach, because essentially they're, by leading on relationship, they're reframing themselves and the category from an emotional standpoint, from loss to love. Like a conversation so much can be about the actual lost hearing, not like just physically, but also what it means emotionally. And then by talking about relationship, you can turn it into love. And there's a shift there's that's really interesting, hopefully manifested through the results. But that's a really good point in terms of expanding themselves.
So listen, let's go to Beth and let's guess. Well, let's first go to ourselves and then we'll go to Beth.
Yeah.
Let's guess how the audiology, what's the name of that spot, Alex? How should we describe it?
The relationship aid, I think, is
The
what
relationship
they were calling
aid. Let's guess on the scale of 1 to 5.9, 5.9 being the top score for System1. Anibal, what do you think it rated?
I would say 3.5.
And why do you think that?
I mean, first of all, I'm trying to remove out of my head the numbers, the statistics around how U.S. specific spots do. There's usually a range in there between 2 point something and 3 point something, but
that's a good question. Because is this U.S.? Was this tested in the U.S. or in the U.K.?
This was in the UK, so it's tested where the spot ran.
And was it also because I actually did they have like a 30-second spot? I saw it almost always as much more of a PR play. So were you testing like a recap video or something?
No, so we have a 60-second spot.
Okay, Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna be generous. This is my pick, so I'm gonna say like a 4.3. I feel like the payoff is very high. There's a lot of people, there's always good scores when you see people positively interacting and stuff. So I think the build to the resolve
There's
is
no
gonna,
people in
gonna
it.
get us high.
There's the imagination, of course.
Yeah.
Rags.
I'm going to go with a 3.1. I think, again, was a bit of a swing. Did it land in the right way? Maybe, maybe not. I think the equity of the brand itself is probably what's giving it a bit of credit here.
Okay, I'm going to go. I'm going to say it suffered from a branding issue or fluency issue going in. I'm going to say it's a 2.9. I love the spot, but it just didn't feel Specsavers-y to me. Beth.
Big reveal. Okay.
Destroy us. Destroy
That was
us.
the truth.
Come on.
Well, Alex, given you put this spot forward, it's only right that you are the closest. And this was a 4.5 star. So,
holy shit.
Yeah.
I would have gone higher, but you guys anchored me lower.
Yeah. You're underestimating how much Brits love Specsavers, whatever they do. So, 4.5 star. The category average in opticians and chemists is around a 3. So it's well above that category average. It's actually in the top 7% of chemists and opticians ads. So very good long-term brand potential, which I think makes sense when you think of it as a long-term kind of stigma play.
We're clearly not in the market, Fergus.
Yeah, go ahead, Rags.
No, I said we're clearly not in the market, that's for sure.
No, man, I'm like, I would have thought that initially that would have suffered from a big branding issue. It's got a great payoff, of course.
You guys, as long as the brand comes in there at the end, you can do a lot. You don't have to have
But
it
that's not
throughout.
typically how System1 is. They want they want you to know in the first 5 seconds, and that's why I was kind of like wild about it. But the other thing is, they must be doing some brilliant goddamn work in the optometry segment in the UK for the average to be 3.0.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's very strong category. I did a bit of a look into our database for this. You've got the big players of Specsavers and Vision Express, and I think because Specsavers have worked with this long-running, super creative, leaning into humor and humans for so long, the whole category, what we see generally in our category level databases is when one brand really goes for it and leans into humor or that kind of creativity, it pulls the whole category up because your Vision Expresses, they have to take a different angle but also lean into emotion in a different way to grow. So it's a very strong category.
Beth, that's a really good point, and I think I alluded to this earlier, but the point I mentioned, Specsavers have 49% preference, Vision Express 10% in the same category. So that delta, I think, speaks volumes to exactly that point that Beth made.
So Beth, you're exposed to all of the work in the UK. Do you look at the new work? And I'm thinking of the executions that show the older man and woman in their kitchen, and it's for the in-home testing. And I don't know, I can't remember the name of the spot, but there just seems to be a huge humor disconnect. And I understand the older age, but I think that the creative team need to be getting closer to the whip snap humor, stronger humor in the long brand campaign, because it just feels to me dull. Is that a spot? I don't know if you have any access to it now. Is that a spot that tests well, or that you feel? Any opinion on it?
I don't have the results in front of me right now, but I would say perhaps it's just a UK specific thing where they've built since 2002, should have gone to Specsavers, has been built into this culturally embedded thing. So the humor maybe lands slightly differently here is when you flip it and give that big reveal of I don't go to Specsavers, they come to me. And they do have some, I'm not sure if it's a specific spot you're talking about, but they do have, more brand focus campaigns around that. I don't go to Specsavers, they come to me. And everyone here is that's clever, because you've grown up, hearing that over and over again. And the fact they've inverted it in a really clever way to talk about something that's very rational, very dull, the fact that they will come to your house and do an eye test there, it's to go about it in that way and still leaning into humor that maybe lands the more familiar you are with should have gone to Specsavers. I don't know. We've looked at the broader kind of star rating here, but when we look at some of the emotional breakdowns, I think something really interesting to me comes through where, so the UK TV average for the amount of surprise felt towards a campaign is 12%. This gets 44%. So it's more than 3 times the average of surprise. And we've looked a lot recently at the power of, we talk about happiness a lot, but surprise is that other positive emotion that can be really effective, particularly, Alex, I think you were alluding to it as well, when they're trying to break through in a category that they're not as well known in, leaning into that surprise, I think is a really smart move too.
All right, Anibal, you are up. Share what you decided to bring to the table and why.
Engineer for whatever. I love that. Well, multiple reasons. The why I decided to bring it is
So it's Columbia Sportswear, by the way.
Columbia Sportswear. I
Yeah.
should have acknowledged that.
And it's done by Adam and Eve,
Adam and Eve.
TBWA London.
A lot of respect for those guys. They always blew my mind. But 2 reasons. One of them is just more about like the actual. It's a story actually. I read it in a few places. And I talked to some friends who worked there, which is about how it was briefed. And essentially, the head of marketing, I believe, at the time, just came in with like 6, 7 slides, and 5 of them were essentially showing like how the homogenize, how the sea of sameness, how everything looks exactly the same. I mean, the category became a postcard pretty much. And then the 6th slide, it was just there. It's like just get us out of this. Like figure out a platform, figure out a point of view that actually gets us into something that stands out.
So what I heard was what happened was that they put, and a lot of people can do this across categories, particularly Alex will know this from automotive. They put all the ads up on a slide.
Yeah, or like
stripped
20
out
years.
the logos and just showed the fact that everything looked the same.
Yes. And they went, I think, back to 20 years. So that got me fascinated because it reminded us, how simple but how powerful sometimes it could be to just play something provocative. But the part that I got excited a lot, and Alex, I'm going to make a nod here to our beloved, rest in peace, Dan Wieden, who, hey guys, once a Wieden child, always a Wieden child. That's what we say, and I said it in every agency I work after. But Dan used to say that the most powerful thing that asset that a brand has is the power of his voice. And I think that's what I like about how the strategy of this one went, which is like they reposition themselves by just going back into the archives, going back into that anarchy, that like raw, that spirit that was always part of the brand that they kind of have lost by becoming a copycat in a way. And the way they did it was also, I think that the president, Joe Royal, he gave everybody a copy of the book of One Tough Mother, which is the book that the founder had. And I read it. It's incredible how much you reconnect yourself with
So
the book.
One Tough Mother is written by Gert Boyle, who was the wife of the founder. When he passed away, she picked it up and she's the one who built the business. And then she's appeared in a lot of advertising too, right?
Legendary advertising. She's like, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest in the 90s and the early 2000s, and she was on the TV all the time with that like absolute take no prisoners attitude. It was awesome.
But I love that they went back to they went back to the power of their voice. They just think, I mean, they kind of have lost it, but it was not reinventing something new. It was just going back deep into what made them them. So that's why I picked it. If I'm making my own guess about the audience and the target, I don't believe that this platform has been designed for, the person that's achieving the summit, the person who is like the most pro expert, overpacking and all that. This is designed for people who are embracing the outdoors and have a level of anxiety and stress and fear or whatever emotion is that is not a positive one around embracing how shitty it gets out there, how tough it is, how hard it is. And being able to tell these people, which I'm assuming is a much broader, amount of people than the expert, like we're designed for you, we're engineered and built for you, like embrace that chaos, felt like a really interesting shift.
Some people think nature is like this. It's actually like this. Don't worry, a raccoon broke his fall.
Not again.
Mother Nature can be a real motherfucker. That's why Columbia engineers everything we make for anything nature can throw at you. Columbia, engineered for whatever.
I agree. That's, I think, the part of it. Like, executionally, it does a great job of standing out from the category with just literally the kind of creative and the inclusion of animation and stuff, which does feel really distinct. But I think more strategically, the willingness to acknowledge the pain and discomfort of kind of getting outdoors versus the kind of beautiful payoff and sense of achievement and kind of one with nature and whatever that I think much of the category does lean into, I think is a really interesting space and opens up kind of a fresher take for them. And I feel like you also get, consumers feel seen in a different way. So to your
Yeah.
point, Annabelle, that they're actually kind of maybe reflecting their own experience of the outdoors as maybe a more average outdoors person than like, somebody summiting Everest. I think that's really strong.
I mean, the majority of people who buy these coats are just gonna go to the store.
Mhm.
Right, I mean, that's the truth, but they want something that reflects
It
something.
might be raining very hard that day
It
for
might be
this.
really windy, and you might have to climb a hill to get to the store, so
That is a good point because honestly, the outdoors that we see in advertising, they do not exist. The real outdoors, they're just like this beautiful thing with this beautiful hike. All the hikes I've done don't look like the ads. They're not like that. They're not that easy. So being able to shift the nature from being just like backdrops to actually being an opponent, an enemy, something you conquer, something you embrace, felt really, really interesting strategically to me.
it's like the Specsavers shit because it's like, who's the antagonist and who's the protagonist? It's like you're becoming a victim of what you're walking out to, which is pretty fair, right? When they're not coming to you, you're going to them.
Which is, I think, a kind of a broader cultural thing we talk a little bit about on Ford, but it's like in an era of climate, change and just more increasing craziness of weather, like there is a sense of a higher degree of wanting to just feel prepared for whatever comes at you. And I think that there's a little bit of like, it's not at the surface of this, but I do think there's a little subtext of like, yeah, the weather isn't, necessarily your friend these days. And nature can be kind of scary and overwhelming. And so that this is actually positioning to kind of feel prepared against the elements versus you going out and conquering them. It's a different switch.
The other really ballsy part of that campaign, an extension of it, is the flat earthers thing. Holy shit. That to me was like brilliant, right? And I've worked, many of us have worked for companies who espoused an environmental point of view, but they rarely were able to address it in their communications in a really meaningful way, or definitely not in an entertaining way. But Columbia went straight at it, and it's not just an actor, it's the goddamn CEO who actually challenges people and conspiracy theorists who think the world is flat to send us a photograph of the edge of the world, and they're gonna give you the entire company.
Hi, I'm Tim Boyle. I'm the CEO here at Columbia Sportswear. And this message is for flat earthers. You guys claim there's an end to the earth? Well, just go snap a picture. Send it to us, and you get the assets of the company. All of it. No paperwork, no lawyers, no catches.
Tim, there is some paperwork.
Hey, we're giving you all this. This. There's a lot of good stuff in here. This.
Has a note on it.
This. Shh. How long is this meeting? All this. This.
How did he do that?
This.
That's actually a rental.
No. Not this. All this. This and all of that. Hey, flat earthers, do me a favor. If you're going to the edge of the earth, wear Columbia. You'll need it. Best of luck.
That felt like a direct tie back to Gert like the fact that it was featuring the founder. I mean, he used to be in the ads with her quite a bit too, and so there that kind of like straight talking, like almost confrontational um tone, I think, with that the flat earth thing, I think is also really nice of them just kind of revisiting their heritage. And I think you described it as like anarchical or something. Like there is
Yeah.
a challenger ethos kind of core to the brand that they've needed, and maybe had fallen away a little bit. I think my one question that I'd be curious to see from Rags is the whether, even though I think this is very emotionally relevant, whether people still buy this category largely based on technical superiority, or at least a sense of technical superiority, and there is still a real kind of need for products to work, or at least people want, to your point, Fergus, sometimes they're still just going to the grocery store. But I feel like it is one where people do actually look at and kind of buy into some of the technical conversation. So I'd be curious to know whether, even though this has maybe done a great job of cutting through and rebuilding awareness, whether it actually is going to drive kind of preference and consideration, because people are still looking for that reassurance on the quality and kind of capability of the product.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting space, and I think you guys have touched on it. It's like I'm sitting here in downtown Manhattan, Soho, and I could walk into my local coffee shop and spot, 3 Arc'teryx jackets and Solomons, and as far away from a mountain or
Canada
something.
Goose, of course.
Canada
Montclair.
Goose,
Yeah.
up to, what is it, Montclair? It's a little bit about status. I think these are also like expensive products. I think people spend a pretty penny on the top tier as well. So there's an element of status that kind of plays a role, and that's where this brand aspect really drives this message forward. In terms of the data, and to your point, which does stand out, Alex, is Colombia, we've seen in our data at least, preference has actually increased 3 basis points from 19 to 22% across the last 12 months. Now, preference is actually a really tricky metric to see large shifts. It's typically a single choice where people say this is my brand of choice. They're sitting second in the category as a whole. North Face is the leader, and are actually seeing a bit of a decline to the similar effects as well. And where it comes down to is we're noticing perceptions
North
around
Face is seeing a decline. Is that what you mean, or the category?
North Face. Sorry, North Face.
Okay.
But the kind of
Where,
key
where
perceptions.
where are they? What's their number, and where are they down to?
They are down from, sorry, bear with me, from 28 to 22%. So they're seeing a 6.
That's
Wow.
significant.
decrease.
Oh, that's significant.
That's a big drop.
Jesus.
Their awareness still wins in the category as a whole. But the things that stand out, one is trust. So Columbia seem to be the leader in trust. And also we have a view here which looks at have a differentiated win on comfort, which I think ties in nicely to a little bit around some of the more technical aspects where they sit quite considerably against the rest of the category. I think they're about 5 basis points ahead of the North Face when it comes down to comfort, which I think is a good kind of
And is
view
this
or
among
proxy.
general population, Rags, or do you go in a little tighter?
Yeah, we're looking at the US outdoor apparel category. So that's a little bit broader, a little bit more narrower than just Gen Pop, where we can probably start to get a sense of people who are using these for more outdoor type activities on the whole.
I like that the trust point, though, is interesting, and kind of goes back to the fact that they've had their CEOs kind of as the face of the brand for so long. And it kind of reminded me, I hadn't thought about this in ages, but they used to have like a lifetime warranty on
They
their gear,
Yeah.
which I know we
I
made
thought it
use
was
of.
Patagonia. No, is that both of them? Both Patagonia?
No, you could, I mean, and we did it. I felt like it was one of those where you're like, this feels wrong. I've used this ski jacket for 3 years or something as a child, and it's got a hole in it, but you could send it back and they'd either repair it, or just you suddenly ended up with a new jacket. So there was this real sense of like a family standing behind their products.
Beth, just your general thoughts on the brand before we score it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really interesting kind of challenger style angle that they took. And what I love in the data that we can see, rather than a lot of the emotional traces that I look at day in, day out, it's a lot of like a lot of gray, which is neutrality. Unfortunately, most people don't feel anything towards advertising. There might be some happiness that grows. This is a full like rainbow. When we look at the trace of this, we've got surprise, we've got happiness, we've got lots of fear, disgust, contempt, anger, and not much neutrality, which is awesome for a challenger brand to like cut through versus some of those big boys like your North Faces and your Patagonias to like just not leave people feeling nothing, to maximize the chance of someone remembering your brand. We're obviously seeing with the data from Tracksuit that that's helping them in some way, but just really eating into that neutrality, not just through positive emotion, but leaning into some of those negative emotions as well, which is resolved at the end, I think. But the stat I like from this is it's got the average globally for the amount of fear that we see in advertising is at 0%. This has got 5%. So it's got a bit of fear. It's leaving people feeling something at least.
But does it play really well when it comes to humor, or does it have an emotional dimension where you're like, it's over-indexing?
So yeah, when we look at the different types of happiness that we record, one of those is amusement and humor. And it definitely over-indexes on amusement versus the category. And interestingly, I looked at some of the different brands that we've talked about, so Patagonia, North Face, and we see that Patagonia, for example, leans into being pleased for others or proud or appreciative. And we see North Face over-indexing in being awe-inspired and excitement, whereas no amusement really coming through there at all. So they found this white space. So I think it's really smart to lean into and over-index on, double down on.
All right, let's go ahead and rate this. And what we're rating is the short film, right? The spot. Was it a 30 or a 60 or what was it? I can't remember what it was, how long it was.
Yeah, it's engineered for whatever.
60.
60,
We'll figure it out. Anyway, so Anibal, what do you think on a scale of 1 to 5.9 for Columbia?
I'm gonna be harsh on this one again, but I think it's because what you were saying, Beth. I do expect this one to be higher on fluency, but I don't know if I'm gonna expect it to be higher on the rest. So I would say 3.2.
3.2. And again, who are we testing this amongst, Beth? It's a good question.
So I have two separate scores for this one. We have the Gen Pop Nat Rep score, but we also have a custom sample of people who participate in outdoor activities.
Oh, nice. Okay, Anibal, you want to go back on that now?
Yes. Yes. Okay, I will say
It's the
that.
Gen Pop, and then what's the other one? So Gen Pop is 3.2?
Yes, that will be Gen Pop to me. I actually will give it a higher, like a 4.1 or something like that to the more outdoorsy people.
Got it.
At least they will relate to it.
Alex, what do you think, Alex?
I feel like we got a little cheap knowing so much fear and the anxiety. I've seen some other ads that kind of take that approach and that have not necessarily done great in the scoring. So I'm gonna give like a 2.7 for Gen Pop, but I'll go 3.5 for outdoor enthusiasts.
Okay, Rags.
I think Gen Pop would be a 3.2. And within the outdoor buyers, I'm going to say a 4.0.
4. Okay, I'm going to go for Gen Pop. I'm going to go 3.8. And for the segment, I'm going to go 3.5 just for shits and giggles. All right. Burst our bubble, Beth.
All right. Okay. So for Gen Pop, it's a 2.7.
Oh my God. Did you and Alex talk before this show?
We didn't, but
I've seen a few System1 reports in my day.
That's awesome.
Called insider trading.
The category average for context is 2.5. So it's a little bit above average. It does better on fluency than average though. So yes, 87% of people knew that this was for Columbia. 78 is the average in outdoor, also sport, performance and leisure. But then when we look at outdoor activity participants, that gets a 3.7. So well above the average, but not quite a 4.
That's great though. It is really, I feel like that's such a good story though for like when you're having these conversations with clients that for a brand to stand out, you have to stand for something, and often that something is meaningful for your target audience, but might not resonate with the Gen Pop. And how do you kind of keep your strength and conviction of what you're trying to do? So I like that there's such a big difference between those two samples.
Yeah, we also see the outdoor activity. So people who like the outdoors associating the ad with being funny more than that rep do as well. So that humor, that relatability is obviously landing hardest with people who are more familiar with the actual activities.
So Beth, when you test spots, when System1 tests spots, let's say you go Gen Pop, are you then able to pretty easily strip out male versus female, age segments, et cetera? Is that easy to report out on? Is the sample size large enough typically?
Yeah, so we can look at male, female, and then different. So like 18 to 24, 18 to 34, 35 to 54, 55 plus. So I can see what it scores for the different age ranges. So 18 to 34, 35 to 54, and 55 plus. What do we think it scores, or which one do we think it scores best with?
I'm going to go in the middle segment.
Me too. I'm going to go middle. Young people are soft.
Of course, I'm going to be wrong, so don't worry. Don't go where I'm going.
We haven't got it right, Fergus, on most of it. So I think.
Although I did get the segment right. Alex and I got the segment right at 3.5 for that. So I'm taking credit.
I'm going to go the oldest age group. And the reason I say that, I think I'm cheating here. Our data says that 45 plus year olds have the largest preference of all the brands in the category. So I'm curious if that's got any correlation.
For Columbia. So they those are their biggest brand fans. Would make sense.
The older segment does, Rags?
Yeah, 45 plus for us is the biggest brand fans, as Alex said.
Interesting.
That's really interesting, actually, because when we look at star rating, it's the 18 to 34 that gets the highest. So it's a 4.7 with 18 to 34. It's a 4.6 with 35 to 54. So pretty much the same. Okay. And then it's a 3.1 with that older age group. But when we look at brand recognition, it's 90 with the 55 plus and 70 with 18 to 34. So that kind of tracks with your data as well, right?
The older guys are sitting down at Soho at the trendy cafes, I reckon. That's what it is.
The older
maybe
guys
more
are
of a
actually
divergence from what they expected the brand. But again, I think you could make a good story for that if you're, defending it to clients to say you stuck out more with a new audience, which is also probably strategically a bigger goal for them.
The older guys are actually, they're at Specsavers getting audiology so they can hear the rattlesnakes. Yeah, great. Wild.
So look for that collab coming soon.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I love it. Columbia doing brave things again. Listen, let's wrap up by just getting a couple of thoughts from you guys in terms of what do you think other brands or other strategists can learn from each of these two cases? Is there something that you think these are great examples of that would be really interesting? So I'm going to start off with Alex and put you on the spot. That's the name of the show, by the way. So but you're on the spot.
Well,
What do you think?
I said it a little bit in my first, but again, speaking from personal experience, I think my first account was Polydent for dentures.
Oh,
And
wow.
I think one of the things that I love the most about this job is that you can find something interesting in every piece of business. And so I think it's a great lesson from the Specsavers work of and again, Specsavers isn't, you would be excited to work on that because of 20 years of great equity and stuff. But I do think it's a good lesson that, every category, every challenge can have really interesting insights in it and can get to really exciting work if you're willing to kind of dig in and find those human truths. So I love that from the Specsavers work, and for clients, the consistency of committing to a platform for that long and being able to kind of keep refreshing it, I think is also a great learning. And then from Columbia, I think that kind of what we talked about, the willingness to stoke emotions that aren't necessarily all positive and cheery, I think is another great one of kind of being willing to be brave on that.
And to be honest about who the buyer is really ultimately, right? Anibal, how about you?
Well, I'm gonna piggyback on a lot of what Alex said because I share the same feelings. I think on both brands, there's two commonalities that I see that I really feel are interesting and worth looking. One of them is both of these brands make me rethink and think and continue to think a lot about who really are they going after. Also, not only who they're going after, but who really also is going to get impacted by this. And I think both brands, I mean, thank you, Beth and Rex for like the results, but at the same time, like both brands were able to achieve more than what likely they were aiming to do based on that. And then the second thing that I find as a commonality is like it's going back to that power of your voice. To your point about like they both have, you know, like enough equity and enough of a voice, enough history, but now losing track of that, no matter the fads, the passions, the trends, whatever is going on in the world, that power, that asset continue to be one of the most secret and powerful weapons that brands have. So I think both reminded me the importance of like let's go back. Like I'm in a building right now that has one of the biggest archives in history, over 100 years. I actually haven't been in a long time, so I'm gonna go and check it out while I'm here and see what I learn. There's so much to look into the attic of a brand that is good to just be reminded that that's a superpower of brands.
Yeah. I think Adam and Eve is classically has been doing that. I think John Lewis was another great example of how they've done that, and Marmite, and it's just a huge body of brilliant work over time. Beth, anything you wanna share?
I think both of these campaigns do a great job of kind of subverting those category expectations, not leaning into the tropes of the category or borrowing from another category, really. And that power of surprise we're seeing is really, really powerful, particularly as more and more media spends go into skippable media platforms. We're seeing that having something out of the ordinary or being able to surprise someone is really important to like stop that scroll as well. So I think moving forward, that power of surprise will be a really interesting one to follow.
Yeah. And then finally, Rags.
Yeah, I think, both brands as a whole, I mean, we talked about this a lot, have a lot of equity in market. They've taken risks, I think, for each of their brands in fairly like low risk circumstances. That being said, to that point, they've been very focused on how they want to approach it, who they're trying to go after. And I think that's ultimately been able to lead to these, us to be having really deep conversations about the work that they've produced. But yeah, all in all, I think it's, to continue to drive momentum this way will kind of yield some interesting results down the line as well.
Thank you guys for being here. Alix Toothman is Global Executive Strategy Director at Wieden and Kennedy in New York City. Anibal Casso is the North American Chief Strategy Officer at Ogilvy. Rags Praytap is Head of Small to Medium Business Sales at Tracksuit in New York City. And Beth Marchant, first time here, Beth. What did you think of it?
Awesome. Yeah, I've had a great time.
Yeah, you did great, by the way. Thank you for being here. Strategy Director, System1 out of London. Thank you all. Thank you all for being on. It was wonderful. I'm sorry that I was the only one with a cocktail, but next time, everybody who comes on the show from now on has to have a cocktail.
You got to record it at least at noon, Fergus. That'll help.
It's noon somewhere.
Got
Might be
tea.
just water.
This is all good. Everybody has a container. Thanks a lot, everybody. And
Thank you.
our next live show, by the way, is at GSD&M in Austin, Texas, where, this is important, actually. We are taking this show concept on the road as a live show. What we're going to do is we're going to have strategists come in, and they're going to present the campaign they love. They're going to show the work. They're going to defend it. People are going to ask questions. People are going to score it. We're going to do it live and have a ton of fun with it. And we will have cocktails. So we're going to try it in Austin at GSD&M. It's September 10th. Thanks a lot, everybody. We really appreciate your time. Have a great Monday.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank
We'll
you.
see
everyone.
everybody on the next episode.